Hello and good evening. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Liza Sacheli, and I'm the director of the Mahaney Arts Center. And it's my pleasure to welcome you here to Robison Hall for this evening's 8th annual edition of the live storytelling event Cocoon. This year is obviously a little different. It's our first time doing this as a live streamed event, so I apologize for us starting a few minutes late. We wanted to make sure everything was just right. We're here live in Robison Hall with a small but mighty live audience. Yeah. May I just say how nice it is to have a live event with people actually here. It's a real pleasure. And I'd like to extend a special welcome to everyone watching online, especially our Fall Family Weekend visitors and our Cocoon alumni storytellers who are joining us. Let's take a moment to recognize the sponsors of tonight's event. First, the Committee on the Arts, the Mahaney Arts Center, and the Middlebury Moth-Up. I just want to take a minute to shout out to that last group, the Middlebury Moth-Up. The group of students that have been working as our partners on this event are incredible. And they had a choice this year to try to go forward with this event with all of the strangeness of this unusual year, or to say, oh, we'll just take a pass, or let's do it later. And they had the courage and the imagination and the dedication to go forward. And I just want to take a minute to say a big shout out for them for their dedication to the art of live storytelling. So just a few housekeeping notes before we begin. First of all, this evening's performance will run roughly 1 hour. There will be no intermission. And unlike previous years, we won't have a meet and greet after the show. So rather, to maintain physical distancing, we're going to ask everyone who's here live to please move out of this space rather than rushing up to say congratulations to your friends, the storytellers. Emergency exits. Emergency exits are located on either side of the stage and in the back of the hall where you came in. And please take a moment now to turn off your cell phone, even if you think you've done so already. It's a great time to just double check. And as a courtesy to the storytellers and to the audience around you, please refrain from texting during the performance. Okay, now it's my pleasure to introduce this evening's host, a senior feb from the Middlebury Moth-Up, Alex Burns.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you, Liza. My name is Alex Burns, and I am one of the co-presidents here at Moth-Up. Thank you for coming tonight, whether that's in person or more likely on your computer. If you're in person tonight, we want to say that we want to be able to hear you. Our normal Cocoon audience would be about 10 times this size, so do not hesitate to laugh or to snap or whatever it is that you do to react to stories. So in order to explain just how excited I am to be here tonight, I'm going to tell a quick story myself. So about 4 years ago today, I visited Middlebury with my dad during Parents' Weekend of 2016 as a prospective student. We heard about the Cocoon, and so we were able to get tickets, and I remember being blown away by all of the speakers and the amazing storytellers, and it ended up being part of my decision in where I should go to college. So when I ended up coming here to Middlebury, I knew that I really wanted to get involved with this organization. It took me applying not once, but twice to earn a spot as the producer on the board. I was rejected the first time, and now as a senior, I've come full circle, and I'm so excited to be here tonight. So enough about me. You came here to hear our lovely storytellers. So tonight, you will hear 4 stories told by both students and staff of the college. Each year, we choose a theme, and the theme of tonight is Downpour. In the past, the theme has been somewhat arbitrary, but this year felt different. To put it simply, we as a board felt like this past year has felt like a downpour. So tonight's storytellers have been tasked with interpreting that theme as they wish. That being said, we want everyone's interpretation of this theme, and for that we have the audience question. So you might have seen, especially for those tuning in virtually, that we have an audience question and a Google form for it. So the question is, after your last downpour, how did you get dry? So please submit your answers to that question on the Google form, and in between the storytellers, we will be reading some of our favorite responses. So if this is your first moth event, no worries, it's pretty simple. We only have 2 rules. 1, true stories, and 2, no notes, not like me. Stories will be up to 10 minutes, and if we reach the 10-minute mark with a storyteller, you may hear a musical cue. Special thanks to Robison Hall Technical Director Mark Christensen for providing these musical interludes. And before I introduce our first storyteller tonight, I want to thank the rest of my powerful, all-female team this year. Thank you so much. So please join me in thanking Zeinab Thiam, Ruhamah Weil, Hannah Bensen, and Elsa Rodgriguez. And without further ado, time for our stories. So, our first speaker tonight is the landscape horticulturalist here at the college. His responsibilities include care and maintenance of pretty much everything green. Although he grew up in Connecticut, he has lived in Vermont for 22 years and now lives at the base of Snake Mountain with his wife, 3 daughters, and too many gardens. Please join me in welcoming Tim Parsons to the stage.
Hi, I'm Tim. I guess that the most important thing to know about me is actually the fact that I'm the dad to 3 girls. Well, they're grown now, but they're still girls in my heart. You do know that you are in real trouble as a dad or a mom when the kids outnumber you. Kids grow exponentially. 3 versus 2 feels like 12 versus 2 at times. So I guess the best way to explain the girls is to tell you a small short tale about when we went up to Mount Abe. I don't know if some of you have hiked Mount Abe or not. Great short hike. It's a 2.5 hour walk up the hills. The trail's not too rough. The last quarter of the hike, you break out of the tree line and you're crawling on top of rocks. It pitches this way and that. There's this one part of the hike where it's one big flat rock about half the size of this stage. If you look down to your left, all you see is sky. There's just like, if you were to sneeze and fall off the wrong way, you'll hit Bristol. It's all air. So at this hike, Zoe was the oldest. She was about 9.5. She's the first one up the trail, first kid. Looks down to the left, freezes, jumps to the right, clings to the rock, says, "I think I'm gonna stay here." The middle kid, her name is Maya. She was about 8 or so. She gets up to Zoe, looks down to the left, jumps right next to Zoe, says, "I think that I'll just stay here and keep Zoe company." She's the middle one. Addie, she is the youngest. I think she was like 6 at the time. runs right over her sisters, sprints to the top. So now this story is a Maya story. And bless her heart, Maya was the dog person in a family of cat folks. So cats are fine, cats are good, that's great, but let's think about it. You don't see a lot of stuffed toy cats, right? They're not snuggly, they're not lap dogs, right? They're not, cats are fine. So Zoe had a stuffed snowman named Snowbud. Addy had a little pink stuffed doll and a little pink blanket to keep the stuffed doll warm, because that's important. But Maya, of course, had the stuffed dog. It was a little tan lab about this big, whose name was Molly, and Molly went with us everywhere. In fact, this dog was almost like the fourth kid. This Molly was so important that every single year, Santa Claus brought Molly a new collar and a new leash, right? So that's great, but a stuffed dog just isn't a dog, right? So, I think Maya's first full sentence that she could say was, "Can we have a dog?" So, all as she grows up, it was just a steady drip, drip, drip. "Can we have a dog? A dog would be great. I'd really, really like a dog." Well, Dad knew that he was outnumbered when the cat folks got on board too. and real quickly became real clear we had to have a dog. So, of course, I'm that dad. I did the research, and I knew we had to have a dog that looked like Molly. I think that it's a rule. If you have a kid, you need a lab, right? Because that's just the kid dog. So I did my research. I found a lab golden cross, and the breeder was all the way up in North Hero. I don't know if you know that part of Vermont. It's about as far from this spot as you can get and still be in Vermont. In fact, I think that it's so far, I think we crossed into Canada, drove through Montreal, and then got into North Hero. So, pack the kids in the car, grab the stuffed toys, grab the water bottles, take the kids out of the car to go get snacks, go back in the car, drive 2.5, 8, 12 hours up to North Hero. So we finally get out of the car. Maya goes sprinting up to the door, knocks on the door. We go around the backyard and we see the puppies. You know how you hear that groups of things, there's like a murder of crows, there's a scholarship of owls. It's a pile of pups. There's a pen, there's 30,000 pups swirling and squirming all over each other. They're all the size of Molly, the stuffed dog, of course. They're all absolutely adorable. I knew that I was outnumbered, Maya looks down, she sees the little one off on the side, kind of small. She picks it up, she scoops it, and she starts to hold it. And she's holding it, and she's rocking it, and rocking it. 2 minutes, 5 minutes, day and a half. She looks up at the woman that breeds the dog. She's like, "What's this dog's name?" Well, so she's a pro, right? So she looks at Maya and says, "Well, sweetie, you can call her anything you want, but we call her Molly." Her eyes get this big, she lights up. "That's my doggie's name." Dad's like, "Uh-oh." She's holding him, rocking. That little pup head starts to snuggle up next to the neck, starts to fall asleep. It's about another week and a half. She looks back up and says, "When was Molly born?" The woman says, "Oh, that's a great question. That's just a great question. This litter was born about 6 weeks ago. They were all born on May 21st. That's my birthday too." So we had a drought of dogs, and now we have a fourth kid. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Tim. So I did mention earlier that we have the audience question. So now we're going to hear a bit from you. So again, the question is, after your last downpour, how did you get dry? One of our responders told us, a soft towel and a whole lot of therapy. Good answer. So our next speaker tonight is a slam poet and memoir writer from Brooklyn, New York. She is a junior, and on campus she is an English and gender studies double major and the president of the spoken word group Verbal Onslaught. She's also currently a Knoll intern, even though she killed all of her succulents last year. Please join me in welcoming Regina Fontanelli to the stage.
When I was 12 or 13 years old, my mom and I beat the shit out of an artificial Christmas tree. We had just gotten home from a long weekend at our then now ex-boyfriend's house, so you can imagine how that went. And we were just feeling tired of the holiday season. For context, my grandmother died on my first Christmas, and my mom was the one who found her, so yeah, the holidays have never been super festive in the Fontanelli household. So, we get in, we drop our luggage at the door, and we see our artificial Christmas tree, all beautiful and erect and upright and gleaming with Christmas glory, and we're just like, ugh, this shit gotta come down. So we go up to it, right? And we're taking off the tinsel real nice and the garland, and then, it gets time to take off the branches. So the way artificial Christmas trees work is, you do one hook from the other. So 1A from 1A, 2B from 2D, yada, 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 until the Christmas tree's in a box. You can put Christmas behind you forever until the next year. So we're all up to this Christmas tree, and we're taking out of the branches, and we're just so tired that at some point we're not really taking them out so much as we're pulling them out. And then at some point during that, we're really not pulling them out as much as we're just throwing them behind us in rage. And we're just laughing and we're cursing. And then I don't even know how this happened, but then the Christmas tree just goes straight on the floor and we just give up on taking out the branches and we're just kicking the shit out of this Christmas tree, you know. We're going Mahaney Ali on this motherfucking Christmas tree right now, you know. Like, this tree never stood a chance. It's going down for the count, whatever. So eventually we work ourselves into an exhaustion and we fall back on the bed. And my mom looks at me and she says, "Gina, I am so tired." And I look at her, and what do I have to say, you know? I'm like 12 or 13. So I just look at her, and I squeeze her palm. Me and my mom against the world. I am 19 and anxiously sitting on my bathroom floor, clutching my track phone with sweaty palms. Today is the day that will change my life. Today is the day I find out if I have been accepted to Middlebury College on a 4-year full tuition scholarship. My palms are sweaty, my body language is frantic. When the phone rings, Regina Fontanelli. Congratulations. I am bouncing off the walls of our studio apartment. I am ecstatic. This is going to change my life. No more shitty basement in Bensonhurst for me. I'm going off to a private school, tuition free. I am so, so happy. And I look over to my mom to share this excitement with her, and she is angry. Bitter, almost. So, you're really gonna leave me? I mean, yeah, duh, like, that's why I applied, but like, maybe that wasn't like right to say in the moment, so I didn't say it. So I just look at her, and she goes on. I'm not gonna make it if you leave. But she doesn't say it with compassion, no, or sentiment. She says it like a threat. She says it like she will not allow herself to make it if I leave. So here I am, eyes locked with my mom, one foot in the past in my home and one foot in the future, and she doesn't want me to go. But I have to. So I take a step forward. I'm 21 now, which is cool, in some ways. And I feel really lucky that I got to live with my best friend Abiha over this break. A lot has changed since I went away to Middlebury. One of the things is that I can't live with my mom anymore, for multiple reasons, but also just because I don't think it's super good for me. So me and Abiha are sitting on our bed just chilling when the texts start to come in. You hate me, don't you? Green text from home, obviously. Just leave me already, you and your fancy school. I sigh. I lean into Abiha's arms and she holds me. Abiha's house is really nice and really different than what I grew up around. Her mom always makes dinner at around 5 or 6, and then her dad comes home and we all sit at the table and eat dal or rice, and you know, we have to like yell at her brother to stop playing Animal Crossing, but like it's not really like, it's still peaceful, you know, like the way we all come together. And I feel really lucky to have that. So she just continues to hold me, not really sure how else to offer her support. As the texts from my mom continue and continue to roll in. You think you're better than me now. You talk to me like a therapist, on and on and on. We watch the rain outside, soaking the concrete and the hungry flowers below. She tries to cheer me up by playing the latest Lady Gaga album, Chromatica, Rain on Me. Yeah, we got fans in the house? Yeah. She puts it on a loop, again and again. A song about making the best out of what you have. You'd rather be dry, but at least you're alive. Yeah, let me not be corny. But, I don't know, we just sit there like that. The thing is, my mom is only like this on her bad days. On her good days, I know she loves me so severely that it's the fact that she loves me this severely that even causes this. And you know what? Beyond it all, I know she's even proud of me for being here, that I continue to persist at this school where there is no one else like me. But on her bad days, I don't see that. On another day, I might reply or say something or try to talk it out with her, but today, I am so tired. So I go to her contact, and I hit the blue block button, knowing I'll unblock her in a few days, and then we'll talk about cats and boys and how beautiful the rain was. And we'll pretend this never happened.
Thank you, Regina. That was amazing. So happy. So back to the audience questions. So one of you told us that after your last downpour, you got dry by calling your mom. Pretty good. Another one of you told us that after your last downpour, you got dry by, you said, I watched all 5 Twilight movies, and then immediately I watched them all again. Great. So I have had the pleasure of getting to know our next speaker this semester, working with her in admissions as a senior fellow. She is involved in every single activity on campus, so I would run far over her time and everyone else's time if I tried to list all of them. In her free time, though, she loves baseball, musical theater, spending time with her rescue dog, and curating charcuterie boards. And most importantly, she is a Vermonter and a creamy enthusiast. Please join me in welcoming Emily Ballou.
Hello, everyone. Yes, as Alex mentioned, I am a Vermonter. And because of that, a lot of people actually think I'm a Feb. I am usually seen wearing a flannel, not today. I get really excited about going outside, whether it's raining or not. And I can usually be seen waving to people on the street, whether I know them or I don't. But I'm not from Middlebury. I'm from South Royalton, which is about an hour over the mountain from here. And South Royalton, we like to call it SORO for short, very tiny town. Our population is about the size of this room. So we get to know each other really well, and you are stuck with the people there whether you like it or not. I went to the same public school there with the same 20 students, kindergarten through 12th grade. There's not much to do, there's not much to see, but I've liked it. But something I've learned about growing up in small town Vermont is that life is about the relationships you don't get to choose. And nothing quite embodies that for us like the Tumbridge Fair. The Tumbridge Fair is our annual county fair, just like you'd think from the movies. We have pig races, we have cow showings and 4-H showings, a beer hall, a bingo tent, the whole 9 yards. And it is probably the biggest event for Central Vermont all year. Like, as I mentioned, not much happens. But every September, when Tumbridge Fair rolls around, every student in Central Vermont gets at least a day out of school to spend time at the fair, whether we're showing animals or just spending time there with their families. And it's definitely even better than a snow day, and we have quite a few of those. And every year, my high school also pairs with the local assisted living center, and high school students are paired with a resident there to wheel them around in a wheelchair all around the fair for a whole day on Senior Citizen Day. And it's a really nice time to get out and give back to our community and volunteer at the fair. But every year, at least one student gets stuck with a really, really cranky resident. I just did not expect mine to be the year I had Nellie. So before we get to meet our residents and spend the day with them, we are given 3 rules. 1, you cannot say no to your resident. 2, you cannot lose your resident. And 3, the most important, do not let your resident die on your watch. Yes, that is rule number 3. And so it's the day of the fair. It's my junior year of high school, and I love the fair. I love the fair. It's really a pity because this year it obviously couldn't happen. The last time the fair didn't happen, World War II was going on, so you really never miss the fair. But it was the day of the morning of the fair. I jump off the school bus, ready to go meet Nellie. And I see Nellie right ahead at the pickup location, this small, sort of frail, older woman, white curly hair, wearing a red sweater with little lace frills on it, holding a tiny pocketbook, very, very cute. And as I get closer to her, suddenly I hear her say, "Can I have someone else? Somebody who might be able to lug me around in this piece of junk?" Oh boy. And I knew from that moment on, I got stuck with a corker for the day. But I keep going up to Nellie, and I go and introduce myself. And I say, "Hi, Nellie, my name is Emily. I'm so excited to spend the day at the fair with you." And she scans me, as one does. She looks me up, she looks me down. And then finally she says, "I don't like you. I don't want to be here." "Okay, Nellie, well, we're stuck with each other. So let's go." So I grab Nellie's wheelchair and I'm wheeling around all around the fairgrounds. And there's one part of the fairgrounds that's called Antique Hill. And it is an actual hill, very, very steep. And when you get to the top of Antique Hill, you are transported back into 1700s Vermont. Everyone is wearing old garb. There's a lot of old farming equipment, a printing press, a one-room schoolhouse, a cider press, everything. And there's a lot to look at, in Antique Hill. So we spend a fair amount of time up there. I'm wheeling Nellie around. She is not enthusiastic about anything. You know, I'm like, "Oh, look at this old saw. Oh, look at this old pencil. Nellie, this is exciting." Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I said, "Okay, Nellie, well, what else do you want to see?" "I want to leave." "Okay, Nellie, you know, because of rule number 1, you can't say no to your resident, we leave." And so Antique Hill, as I mentioned, is a hill, and it's quite steep going back down. And it takes a lot of muscle and grit to wheel a wheelchair both up and down the hill very carefully in a safe manner. But I do it. And we finally get to the bottom of Antique Hill. We're at the Sugar Shack, all things maple, my favorite spot. And Nellie says, "I want to go back up to Antique Hill." Yes, Nellie. Yes, we can go back up to Antique Hill. And so I am shoving her up Antique Hill. My arms hurt, my legs hurt, my body hurts, my soul hurts. And she is complaining I'm going too slow, so my dignity hurts a little bit too. And it's a grueling process. And we finally get all the way back up Antique Hill. Nellie, what do you want to see up here? And she says, I want to leave. Okay, Nellie, yes, we can leave. And so we go back down Antique Hill the same way. And this goes on 4 or 5 more times, me bringing Nellie back up Antique Hill and her wanting to leave and go back up. And I am absolutely exhausted. I just burn all over. I have no muscle strength left. And Nellie wasn't a very large lady, but trying to lug her in a safe manner up and down the hill, so much. So I was really glad when lunchtime rolled around. And, you know, we are at the top of Antique Hill for a final time. And I have her wheelchair in my hands. And I look down. And for a second, I think about just, ooh. But I don't let go, because there are a lot of people below Antique Hill and the wheelchair would crush and hurt them. So I bring Nellie down in a very safe manner. And so it's lunchtime, and Nellie needs to use the restroom. And so I take this opportunity to grab something really quickly to eat myself. And when I come back to pick Nellie up, I'm expecting to see her waiting in her wheelchair. Nellie was there. Well, no. Nellie's wheelchair was there. But Nellie was nowhere to be found. And so, of course, rule number 2, you can't lose your resident. And what I do, I lost my resident. And so I'm looking everywhere. I'm running back and forth. I'm looking in the pig stalls. I'm looking at cow stalls. I'm looking at all the tents. I'm looking at the apple crisp station. Cannot find Nellie anywhere. Until finally, I look behind the restroom at the tent and find Nellie sitting there hiding from me. Nellie. And I race up to her. Nellie, where have you been? And she says to me, I don't want to spend any more time with you. Well, Nellie, I don't really want to spend much more time with you either. But unfortunately, murder is not an option, thanks to rule number 3. You cannot let your resident die on your watch. So I was really glad when the end of the day finally rolled along, and it was time to return Nellie back to the drop-off location and end our wonderful, wonderful day together at the fair. And, you know, although I didn't necessarily choose to spend my day with Nellie, and she certainly did not choose to spend hers with me, I still absolutely love the fair. I love what it means for my community, and how everyone always just comes to the fair and has a great time. And I think that's kind of a nice thing about Vermont. You know, you can enjoy all the Vermont cultures and traditions and the outdoors with everybody, no matter who they are, and still have a great time. And, you know, although Nellie is no longer with us today, at least that didn't happen on my watch. Thank you.
Thank you, Em. I'm glad you aren't a murderer. Good to know. So I'm going to read a few of our last responses before we get to our final storyteller. So after your last downpour, how did you get dry? You told us, I danced to Burning Up by the Jonas Brothers. And another last-minute response that I received was my last downpour was tonight, when I literally got caught in one on a long hike, and I had to strip off my clothes and drive home in a towel so I could make it home in time to watch the Cocoon live stream so I could see my daughter. That one's from my mom. So thanks, Mom. I know you're out there watching. I'm glad you made it. So without further ado, I will introduce our final storyteller. This last speaker serves as the food and garden educator at the Knoll. She's a posse mentor and a mom, a spouse and a daughter. She's a Middlebury alum, and is passionate about the power of observing and listening to the natural world. Please join me in welcoming Megan Brakeley to the stage.
How do you know you belong in the world when you don't see yourself in it? And what's it like to see a version of yourself walking around outside of your stuff, stepping with your step and humming with your energy, but a different being? And what does it mean when the first time that you feel that connection is not at a family gathering, but in the form of a 120-pound beast of a dog prancing through the wilderness? Growing up as a transracial, transnational adoptee, I never knew what I was missing in the ties of kinship, but I learned from my earliest days about otherness. When grown adults would take one look at me and back at my family and tell me that my mother wasn't really my mother and my brothers weren't really my brothers, it was hard not to internalize others' othering of me and my racialized self. But my parents taught me to grind, to be polite to the death, and to try to be true to myself. And so when I worked really hard, I could forget how alone and insecure I felt in my all-white public school district, or when I never saw an Asian person on TV, or when I was heckled for shaving my arms, or praised for speaking perfect English. When I arrived at Middlebury College in the fall of 2002 as one of 90-some other domestic students of color, I could feel that insecurity in me everywhere. I was way out of my league. And I felt it especially acutely when I was walking through town, and I can still feel in my body the fear at the sound of the big trucks peeling out from behind me at the crosswalks, or worse, when they wouldn't stop. I felt like town was a monolith, and I was equally perceived as one, as a hypervisible, privileged college student available for pointed questions anytime I made eye contact. I would prepare myself. Where are you really from? Pittsburgh. Also, Philadelphia and Birmingham, Alabama. What languages do you speak? English? And a little Spanish? Have you ever been back to Korea? So next, can I ask you about some of your most deeply held personal identity-based insecurities as a matter of public curiosity now that we've just met? It took me almost 30 years to realize that I didn't actually have to answer any of those questions. But none of these experiences was unique to Middlebury, and I fell in love with this place alongside new friends who explored its beauty. Brook trout and waterfalls and hemlock forests and the sound of snowflakes landing on your shoulders in deep snow. The peace and grounding of this landscape. I graduated ready to read nothing for a very long while. And I found a job on a farm to follow a person who was in the even more remote wilds of the Adirondack High Peaks. And a couple of months into my new digs, I got dumped. And I was sad to be alone, but I was way sadder to realize that I was afraid to be alone and afraid to seek my solace in the mountains. I had spent so much time chasing behind my confident men friends that I almost took for granted the security of their presence. And so when a work colleague told me about a litter of free puppies that she had, half lab and half Malamute, I went to meet them right away. And there were 8 fluff balls. And I asked her 2 little kids which one I should pick, and they said, Goliath, the big one. And even though I offered him a new name, Bert the dog, he came by that first one honestly, and he grew to be massive. He was the same size as me, and he had big, intelligent eyes and a curly tail and a very regal posture, and he would cross his paws when he was resting. And we were together all the time and just tuned into each other's energy. When I was down, he would come and put his big, mopey head in my lap and sigh. And when we were out on a trail together, we would just radiate with elation. He was on guard when I was. Think about how many adventures outdoors left you lost in the middle of nowhere. And I should be honest and say that I have a terrible natural sense of direction, so actually for most of the time, that's me all the time. Or how many fly fishing adventures required parking at some unmarked trailhead or some unmarked pull-off on the side of the road and required trespassing or something that feels a lot like it when there's nothing posted. I understand the concept of public lands, but I also trust my gut. And I could trust Bert to keep me safe. We had all sorts of amazing adventures together, and for 13 years, his companionship filled the shape of my fear, and his ease in the world eased my world. As Bert aged, and from there I could get to know my rural communities on terms that I felt okay about. If I was going to be hyper-visible in a community, then might as well have something to talk about. They would ask, "What breed is he?" Or, "Have you had him since he was a puppy? Was he a rescue?" And I was happy to answer questions about Bert the dog. He helped to usher in a new era of my life, meeting my eventual spouse, a return to Middlebury, and here where we entered into the wholly consuming magic and mundanity of bearing and rearing children. My children, my only known kin, and a whole new kind of love to live for. I came to know my confidence in new and surprising ways, in actually getting to know the community and in becoming known here and in building our home here and in the shape of mothering. As Bert aged, he got really grumpy and he lost his hearing and his vision, and my two babies just climbed all over him and licked him right back. So when about a year ago today, his heart started to fail, we made him bone broth, and we served him ice cream, and we stitched him garlands of dahlias and sage and bee balm to hang on his big neck. And we swatted at the flies that knew what was coming next, and we anointed his tired fur with fragrant oils. And I got to hold his big head in my lap one last time as the traveling vet ushered in the strange mercy of quick, cold death. We buried him up in the mountains in one of his favorite places, and I can still see his tail thudding and his nose going wild with all the smells. We dug for hours in Goshen's thin, sandy soil, scraping at ledge matted with roots and moss on a weirdly hot October day. We dug until our tears and our sweat rained down our face, and we were soaked like we had been standing in a downpour. I had never expected that burying a body would bind our love in such a way. But we had to dig a big hole for that big dog. The shape of my enormous love, my enormous fear, eased and laid to rest, protected and gifted with the knowledge of how to protect the ones that come next, grateful to the end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Megan. And can I get another round of applause for all of our storytellers? And thank you to everyone who came to tonight's event, both in person and online. I'm now going to take a moment to acknowledge two people who worked incredibly hard behind the scenes to make tonight's event successful. As you might imagine, putting on an event in COVID times is no small feat, and this event would not have been possible without them. Please join me in thanking Liza Sacheli and Mark Christensen. Wait, that way, flowers. Thank you, Liza and Mark. To the two of you, we are forever grateful. Thank you. And as always, we love to hear your feedback. So if you have any comments or questions, something you want to let us know about tonight's event, please email us at mothup@middlebury.edu. And if tonight's storytellers inspired you to want to tell your own moth story, we will have more events coming up, so please pitch us at the Go link go/mothstory. Thank you again for coming to tonight's event, and this concludes the programming. For those of you in the in-person audience, please exit at the designated exits. Thank you.